Well, good Wednesday morning again, everybody. Welcome back to another weekly episode or a weekly-ish episode. We skip a few. A weekly-ish episode of As the Coffee Brews. I'm Matt Brooks coming at you live again from The Roost, which is our entrepreneurial co-working space in the southern western edge. Did you know that this corner right outside is the corner of downtown?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we get to hold up the southwest corner of downtown. Welcome, Gordon Whitney chimed in quick. Hey, good morning. John Watt is with us already as well. Good morning, guys. We're happy to have you. And anybody else that happens to join us during the show or happens to watch it recorded afterwards, this will be available till the ends of time. So we got to watch what we say.
Excellent.
Hey, listen, guys, I am excited. I'm excited every week by every guest that we have, but today I consider it an honor to have Don come and spend some time chatting with us about his lifetime of positivity and just being an influencer for good things in the Port Huron and really the greater Port Huron area. Is that fair?
That is fair. I'm a community volunteer and certainly an advocate.
Absolutely. And boy, I'll tell you, Don and I were talking and just getting ready for the show that we are all writing our own book every single day with our experiences. And that being true, this dude's got a novel, let me tell you. You've done some things, is that right?
Thank you very much. This all got started many years ago in Lansing, Michigan. My wife and I were born and raised in Lansing, and my folks owned and operated a restaurant. And so my work ethic was certainly enhanced and personalized by all of the experiences that I had in the restaurant. I used to kid people and say, when I was 6 years old, I would cry when I couldn't go. Like 12, I cried every time I had to go. But it was the best thing that could have happened. And from there, I went on to Michigan State, took a course. It was actually called personnel then, but it's HR. And so I graduated in HR. From there, I went to the Bud Company in the automotive industry.
Having being born and raised in Lansing, you really had no choice but to be a Spartan.
You are right. Yeah, I was a little Spartan, and my wife's parents had tickets, and we still have season tickets to football, and I love the basketball program. So absolutely, Michigan State. And now it's third generation because my son graduated there. We've got granddaughters there. And so it was a special experience that helped me. And then going down to the Bud Company, I was on a management training program, Matt, and it was neat because I learned the entire automotive industry as it was viewed by the Bud Company. And the Bud Company was an automotive parts supplier, so not Bud beer, but automotive parts. And so I had the opportunity to go into different departments, and then I was in labor relations for the last 3 years. And I think labor relations and the boss that I worked for set the stage of how I was to be a leader going forward, because it was all about negotiating. It was finding win-win solutions and to be able to have that give and take. And that helped me in all the interactions that I've had through the years, whether it be volunteer or whether it be work.
I love the you bring up the theme, which will become a theme of our conversation here this morning about leadership, right? And leadership is so much of your story. When did you transition from that role and get into healthcare?
It was I think about 5 years I was with the Bud Company, and then we lived in St. Clair Shores. My wife and I always liked small towns, and I was ready to move on to probably do something in an industry that gives back. and I felt that healthcare was that industry. Rather than working with automotive parts, it would be neat to be able to make a difference in a human industry. And so my first experience was in Howell, Michigan, and McPherson Health Center.
Back toward home.
Back toward home. Yeah, that was interesting because the way that happened was that we would go home from St. Clair Shores through Howell, have a little bite to eat on a Friday night, and then go and see our folks. And so that's how Howell got on the map with us. And I spent about 3 years there, set up their first HR department. And then my boss, who was Chuck McKinley, happened to be on loan from the University of Michigan to that hospital. And he said, hey, I've got a new job. I'm going to go to Port Huron, and I'm going to work at Port Huron Hospital. I'm going to be the CEO. Would you like to come with me? So many years ago, 40 plus years ago, I said, yeah, that would be a great opportunity. So I'm going to, you set up HR in Port Huron Hospital, and then from there, I'll teach you hospital administration. And the way we went.
And so it was to be that you would the Fletcher gang would come to Port Huron.
That was it. In fact, the Fletcher gang was my wife and 4 children, and at that age it was from 4 to 9. We had 3 boys and a girl, and one was in the 4th grade, one was in the 2nd grade, and the others were preschool. So that was one of the things that probably kept us here, is that, excuse me, it's just a wonderful community to live in and for the kids to grow up in. And at the time I was thinking, well, maybe 5 years, I'll move on to something else. And the story is that I've been here ever since.
5 years becomes a few decades real quick, right?
Yeah, it was terrific. And so my succession at Port Huron Hospital was HR, and then I had support services, and then I had professional services. Then I became the chief operating officer, and then CEO. And so I served as the CEO at Port Huron Hospital for 16 years and was there for 33 years. So it was basically my life's work.
It's amazing. You know, the hospital is one of the many say properties or entities in and around Port Huron that is part of an illustrative of the comeback story, right? You look at growth and progress. And you can see growth and progress in many areas throughout this community, but not the least of which is that hospital around the corner, right?
It's just incredible. In fact, there was a time, probably in the 80s and 90s, when things were not moving that fast, and healthcare was something that was growing through those many years. I would like to think that the foundation, from my perspective and what we were able to accomplish, and part of the culture, that's what is strength. And it was to work hard, to care deeply, and to have a lot of fun. And so that was the foundation that we set. And back in '88, I said, not only do we want to establish a culture, but we also want to give customer service. And that would be quality in fact, which would be our standards, and then quality in perception, which would be our service. And we followed a path that was called the Baldrige process. And it was 7 steps, and it was a national quality award. And we worked that award, we worked that process. We got many of our people, our doctors, our board members, all engaged and focused on that process. And in 1998, we won the Michigan Quality Leadership Award, which was the highest quality award in the state. And it was a wonderful celebration,
sure.
But it was focusing on why we were in business, and that was to serve others.
You know, Don, in this community, I'm very involved and passionate with the entrepreneurial community throughout the Blue Water area. And to my entrepreneur friends that may be watching, I clung on to something that Don had just said: work hard, care deeply, and have a lot of fun. And that's an entrepreneurial message right there too.
Is that right?
Yeah, I love it. That's important, you know. I mean, we gotta. Some people say work hard and play hard, which is good bookends. But I like what you put in the middle is to care deeply, and that applies really to. It can apply to everything, and should apply to everything that we do, right?
And I'd also like to just take a minute here, Matt, because I really give you a tremendous amount of credit in this community. You know, co-working space and entrepreneurism. Those are words that weren't much back in the the 80s and 90s, and as technology has come to the world back in the 2000s and so forth, you've done a wonderful job and educating us on what entrepreneurism was and how to use technology and how to start small businesses. And this is your second co-work space, and it's neat because part of the process was to educate the community on what that was all about.
That's right. Don has just become my favorite guest ever on the show. So if you're just joining us, Matt Brooks over here at the Roost. I'm talking this morning with Don Fletcher, and we just talked about, as far as professional work, how do you boil down 33 years, is that right, at the hospital? I was thinking through your storytelling there, what did you learn? But can you boil down, what are the takeaways from 33 years working in one organization, but growing throughout that organization, finally to become the leader of it?
I think it was to respect people, and that would be to respect the board, to respect our employees. Basically, part of what I learned was their customers. So it's called servant leadership. My role was to serve others, and so that we had one customer ultimately, and that was the patient. And then we had partners, and the partners were physicians, staff, to be able to focus on how can we best serve our ultimate customer, which is the patient. So I think that was probably the biggest takeaway. And then the power of culture, to be able, we still have, and I go to some events and groundbreakings and so forth, and all the neat stuff that's happened in the last 4 or 5 years, the new Cancer Institute, the new Patient Tower, and I go to those and still see some of the the fragments and some of the core values that still are very strong. So I'd like to think that, I in my way and with a number of the employees, our role was to set a foundation and then to allow others to continue to build upon the core foundation, because we also had some great docs before I came. And so I look at the past, and their job was to set the foundation, and then we continue to grow it, sophisticate it, and here we are today, where this is a regional medical center, and we have a couple hundred beds, and we have 1,600 employees, and it's a major institution in the region.
The seeds that were planted grew roots, right? And so, the plant grows and looks different over time, but those roots are still down there.
You bet. It's interesting as we transition from the core, and part of the other thing of Port Huron Hospitals, we believe in being involved in the community. And so that one of the things that my boss, Chuck McKinley, and I, we encouraged all of our leaders. We had maybe 50, 60 management types that we wanted them to be in the community and to give back to the community. And Chuck and I chose that the Community Foundation would be a great institution for us to give our time and talent and resources. And so that's how I got involved in the Community Foundation. I also, I read a book as I was kind of leaving Fort Huron Hospital. And, some people say retire. Well, retire is too passive of a word for me. I was not going to retire. I was going to begin the second phase, the second half of my life. And I read a book, and that book is Halftime. And it's not a sports book. It's about a person, and it has kind of a spiritual context because it's moving from success to significance. And so, and I would say to all of those that are watching and listening, it's having some focus in your life to develop a personal vision. And my personal vision was to give back to my family, give back to my community, and to give back to my profession. So the last 15 years in my second phase, that's what I have focused on.
Great segue. By the way, we were talking a lot about leadership, so important. And, I wanted to transition really into talking about community involvement. Why is it important for people that, exemplify or believe in leadership to get out there in the community? What's the importance of that?
Community is so important, and it really is probably a little about who I am. But my wife and I and daughter had a small business. It was called the Mole Hole, and it was next to Diana's, so it was a gift shop. And one of the things that I guess small business, you can work 24/7.
For sure.
And so as you are helping people get started and giving them support to start their new businesses, one of the things that you don't ever have time is time to give to others. And yet it's the balance that really will make you successful. So it's your core business that's most important, but then you also have to do other things besides that. And that is to get involved, to be able to look and see what your community is, what are its strengths, what are its weaknesses, and also to get to know some of the organizations in the community and to look at what their core values are and to see if you do a personal vision that identifies your strengths and what you're good at and your passions. And so how can you take the time, talent, and resources that you have, get to learn the community and organizations within the community, and then select one or two of those to be involved in, because we all have a responsibility to make this the best place that we can for everyone that's here.
How do you, people that like to be involved, it's easy to get, I don't want to say sucked into everything, but that is what it is, right? And so how do you learn to say no to some things? Because you have to, right?
That's the most difficult thing. It really is. And I would say that what helped me, and I'm not good at it. I'm not good at saying no because I'm a can-do guy.
Sure.
I can make it happen.
Right.
But if you have a filter, and what I was able to do is to filter what are my strengths, what are the three things that I want to do: family, community, and profession. Let that be the screening device and see how my passion and things that I do well in can benefit those three areas. So that helps, because if it's outside of that, you need to think about maybe someone else has got the ability to do that better than me. So let's focus on the most important things.
Don, what do you say to somebody that might be, feeling like, they've got something to offer, but maybe can't find the right fit, or, maybe they can't make a difference, or, yeah, there's a lot of big challenges out there, right? And so that can seem intimidating to people.
Yeah, I would say that's right. And I think the more that you network with people, the more that you can find opportunities, so that, if you're going to stay in your own little space, you probably won't find much.
Right.
But if you can get out and about, and I think a great example would be the young professionals.
Sure.
I mean, that's an effort that has just blossomed in the last 10 years or so. But it's people of like interest getting together, meeting each other, doing some community things, and so the more exposure, the more people you meet, the more things you do, the more you travel within the community, you do run into those opportunities. And so that's what I would suggest, and is to just continue to network.
Agreed. Before we wrap up, I wanted to reflect on an event that we were both at earlier this year. Speaking of the Community Foundation, who had their 75th, or is celebrating 75 years of being. And at the anniversary gala, you were recognized with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Is that right?
Yes, I was. And what a great honor.
It was amazing I felt privileged to be a few tables away, and then I was able to watch you receive that award and give some remarks on that. Maybe talk about what does that feel like to be given such an honor for a lifetime of doing things.
It was a wonderful opportunity, and as I look at those three filters, we had 16 members of our family that were there to enjoy that with me, and that was terrific. And then, as I said, it's neat to have the focus on me, but this isn't about me. And I looked out in the audience, and there were 500 people, and there were so many of those people that made it possible, because when we talked about like Blue Meets Green, partnerships and collaboration, so many of the people in the audience, I would like to have them come up and be on the podium with me, because we did it together. And I think that probably four things that I reflected on that night, which were neat. One would be my folks, and I know they had a great smile up above on that day, and they gave me the foundation, exposed me to things that helped develop Don and my personality and who I was. And then Port Huron Hospital. Port Huron Hospital was just a wonderful place to be able to have this culture that I talked about, in terms of to work hard, to care deeply, and to have a lot of fun. That was us, and that created a wonderful environment to serve the community. The third thing was Blue Meets Green, and I know you're familiar with that, and maybe a lot of people are today, but that started back in 09 and 10, and that was when the economy was in deep trouble. And there were many of the community leaders that said, we're not going to be able to rely on the federal government, the state government to bail us out. We're going to have to do it ourselves. So we developed a strategic plan, and over these 10 years, we've had 5 iterations of those strategic plans, and we developed this culture of collaboration and partnerships to make a lot of things happen. And it's momentum. Once the ball gets rolling, the bigger it gets, the faster it goes. Sure. And then the last item, and I know you do this for your way in terms of technology and using social media, was to have the opportunity to work with Larry Boyer and Impact Communications and EBW TV, which is an internet TV company. So it's been good, and I'm going to continue as long as I can to continue to give back.
What a great conversation, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just love hearing your story, and we appreciate, on behalf of the community, Don, I appreciate all that you've done and continue to do to be a beacon of positivity in this town. We sure appreciate it. And listen, thank you guys for tuning in, either live or watching after the fact. If you've got questions, certainly feel free to pop them into the comments box, and I'll figure out a way to track down Don again and get them answered for you. Is that fair?
Oh, you bet.
Next week, our guest will be Kelly Lozano. She is the founder of the Grand Trunk Marketplace and has a new initiative to empower women, and it is called Girl on Fire. It is exciting. You excited?
Hey,
We're not welcome.
We're not welcome. Oh.
And
We got to find a way.
we got to find a way in, man. And so I'm excited to talk with Kelly next week on As the Coffee Brews. In the meantime, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and find something good to do on the fleeting rest of the weekends that we have in this summer and as we enter fall. Don, we'll look forward to seeing you again soon, okay?
Thanks.
All right. I'm going to get up and walk over here and press the end button.
Okay.
And we can find ourselves a refill on the